Well, Steve, welcome back to the show. How's things been?
Well, it's our political season here, and we have a rather interesting election going on. Yours can get pretty interesting too, particularly given the parliamentary system and the fact that you can have, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 parties running at the same time, what have you, coalitions being built and all that. We don't have that problem here. However, we do have rather interesting, uh, almost unprecedented situation in terms of the presidential selection, and that has made the campaign hard to follow and with all kinds of implications for other issues, which are essentially when we get to this particular part of our wonderful 4 year presidential cycle, just about every issue out there is off the table, except what comes out, except when it's referred by the candidates who always refer to these issues in very simplistic ways, right? Very basic, going to get it across, whatever it is. There, it's like I'm going to fix it. Nobody else can. That kind of thing. So the information content very low. The energy could be high, but underneath all of it is an extremely important election in the United States. And one of the issues that's impacting, of course, is the most important issue in the world, the ET presence. So, in that sense, it's definitely special and has my complete attention.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I see it from two different ways from speaking with different people. You got some people that are almost insistent that the UFO UAP subject is kind of going to be on the back burner until 2025. But then on the other hand, I've got individuals who'll say that it may start picking up around October as we get closer to the election with potentially, presidential candidates maybe even discussing this subject. What do you think? Which way is it more likely to go?
Well, to explain that properly, I need to give your audience some background here. Uh, we have we're 7 years in since the New York Times articles hit, and the final era, frankly, of the truth embargo begins, and the process gets underway uh, to prepare for disclosure. That's what's been going on. That's why the people came forward in 2017. That's why there have been briefings on the Hill. That's why there's been legislation. That's why they set up UAP task force. Why they set up Arrow. All of this is to prepare for disclosure. This is something I have said now several 100,000 times. I shall continue to, because it's still a little hard for a lot of people to get. It's like, isn't it about finding out what's going on up there? Because we don't know, right? Unidentified, aerial phenomena. It's unidentified, so the government needs to identify it. No, that's not what it's about. The government knows exactly what it is, pretty much. So all of this for 7 years now has been preparing for disclosure. Why? Because disclosure, as I define it, capital D, is the confirmation event. I could have called it confirmation, but it sounded too religious. So I went with disclosure, made it a proper noun, capital D, thus creating years of confusion. Disclosure process, there's actually two disclosure processes. One's been underway for 77 years. The revealing, the getting of information, the finding out, that's small d disclosure. Happening. Every book, every doc, everything released by the government is small d disclosure. A little of this, a little of that, no problem. It's been going on. And the disclosure process to get more and more and more of that small d disclosure is going on and will continue on probably for a very long time. But there's another movement going on simultaneously with that, and that is the capital D disclosure movement, which I take credit for. I defined it in 2001, I think. I don't keep track of stuff. I don't have a diary. But essentially, I concluded, because I know something about activism, that this issue does not have a proper prize. It doesn't have a defined outcome. Almost all major political activist movements do. But this issue, my whole life, what I glimpsed from time to time, and what I saw when I got involved, has been 70 years of proving. Go out and check out this sighting, do that report, do another report, do 1,000 reports, write a book, proving. Quite a science in a sense, which is fine. Except, unlike normal science, once you've established enough proof to confirm a hypothesis, You then, and get it peer reviewed. Then that goes into the how would you say, the record as a proven aspect of of our world, and you move on to something else. That's not the way this issue works. It's as if someone proved relativity and they said, "Ah, we don't believe you. Do it again." And they did it. Don't do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Scientist after scientist, decade after decade, coming up with more and more proof of relativity, and the government saying, "Ah, I don't believe it." Now that's absurd, isn't it? Of course it is. And obviously, if we ran science that way, we would barely be able to get up out of bed and let alone go to the moon. But on the ET issue, no amount of science, no amount of photographs or video or testimony or radar logs or trace cases, no amount of proof piled up to the stars would change the government policy. There's nothing there. And if there was, you don't have a need to know. I mean, that's how stupid and ridiculous it was. And so proof. That's what? What's the prize here? Well, the prize is eventually you prove it so well, the government goes, "Oh, you got it." That's not the kind of prize we want, and that prize is easy to withhold. So, what is the prize? Confirmation. When the president of the United States says, in what could be a few words, "We're not alone. Got ET tech, got ET bodies, whatever. We're not alone in the universe. We need to," and you're going to learn more about that as soon as I can get it out to you, or as soon as possible. Whatever. That's disclosure. Takes 10 seconds, and it'll either come from our president first, or it'll come from our president after a couple of other heads of state have said it, which I can constantly remind our government about. Meaning, you're not the only government. They have airplanes. They have gun camera footage. They can do it anytime they want to. In which case, you got a lot of egg on your face. So that's disclosure, capital D. Two movements, small d disclosure, capital D disclosure. Now they are synchronistic. What do I mean? They both impact the other. All the small d disclosure that's been unfolding, this proving process, if you were, that goes back 47, virtually right out the gate with the press release, has made it, as it's piled up, has made it easier to get capital D disclosure. It's taken a long time, but then the issue is massively calcified and considered national defense. On the other hand, capital D disclosure, the confirmation event, I think we can all agree, will profoundly accelerate small d disclosure. Meaning, after the heads of state of the nations of the world confirm this extraterrestrial presence, I can assure you the small d disclosure of stuff coming out is going to accelerate. And so the two are synchronistic and they're going on simultaneous. Now, with that as preface, since 1990, since December of 2017, we have been on a fast track to wrap this up, get it done. And there's been a lot of ups and downs, but overall, there's been a steady process. It's slowed at times, but it's never reversed, truly reversed. There have been some efforts to reverse it, some pushback, what have you, but they've all failed. And so, with that in mind, where are we right now? Okay. Right now, within the last few months, things have taken some interesting turns. All right. Let's go back to October of last year. So we're talking about a 7-month period. Chuck Schumer last year introduced the ultimate bill, the one we had to have. The first three were fine, but they did in no way were comprehensive. He introduced the UAP Disclosure Act, a comprehensive bill embedded in our National Security Authorization Act, National Defense Authorization Act, that essentially was it. It was everything you needed to know. It's like when you go out and play baseball, you got a set of rules, right? A complete set of rules that covers the whole game. Otherwise, it could get really crazy. And once you got all those rules together, you can go out and play ball. Same thing with this. This act was everything we needed to start a proper disclosure process, small d, right? Bringing everything out to the world in an orderly, constructive way. Everything we needed, the works. Great, fantastic. We're all celebrating, yay. And then this bill was so strong that the opponents of it shot it down. Now, the idea that there's opposition to disclosure is hardly shocking. What's different about what happened back in October of last year is that the bill was, well, so important. It was championed by a high level member of the United States Congress. They couldn't ignore it. They couldn't just say, "I don't worry about it." No, they actually had to shoot it down. They had to come out of cover and they had to actually shoot it down. And we knew who was behind it. We knew the members of Congress that serviced who was behind it by names. We know who they are. And that's on the internet, it's out there. So that was a big deal. The bill itself was a big deal. But the fact that the defense contractors had to persuade members of Congress that they had to gut that bill by influencing the staff and the members that are involved in their conference, the reconciliation conference, where the two bills are reconciled to each other for final passing and being signed. They had to come out of cover. We knew it. It was obvious. And so the defense contractors, particularly, went after that bill. The principal reason for that is the bill contained eminent domain, which was a big deal. When that was added, when Schumer mentioned it in July, he got everybody's attention. Eminent domain threatened their rights. I mean, what they would view as their rights, their proprietary positions to maximize their shareholder profits with billions and billions of dollars of money they would make from exploiting whatever they've learned from those crash vehicles and the science behind them and the engineering. And so they had to come out of cover, which is important, right? Why was it important? Because when Grush said there's ET tech and ET bodies, a lot of people said it's secondhand. Who was this guy? Blah, 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 yada, yada. And then when Schumer comes out with the bill, the 2024 UAP Disclosure Act, it specifically says and refers to non-human tech, I don't know, 55 times. And then there's an eminent domain section in there about the government claims eminent domain, the right to exercise it over all that non-human tech. And so Schumer confirmed we have non-human tech and, of course, confirmed Grush. And then when the defense contractors tried to gutted that, pulled it out, very obviously, they confirmed we have non-human tech, because if we don't have any non-human tech, then the defense contractors have nothing to worry about regarding eminent domain over non-human tech. And so the whole thing is starting to get really out of hand. Okay. So they gutted the bill, and it was eventually signed in December. And then the campaign and the politics starts to get thicker and deeper here. So the prospects of having a hearing became less and less. Now, we were pressing as hard as we could to get our Senate Intel chairman, Mark Warner, to call the hearing. The witnesses are ready. There's plenty of them. There are a bunch of David Grushes, including firsthand testimony people. And 1 week's testimony from these witnesses would blow the truth embargo up, and the president could come forward, end the truth embargo, and we go to the post-disclosure world. And there was time to do that at the end of 2024. I mean, there was time to do it early in 2024, but Warner could not pull the trigger on that. And we did everything we could to try to get the word in. Danny Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute was running a program where people could contact all their members of Congress. I was running a program with PRG about how to send tag Twitter messages to the key people. We want the hearing. We want the hearing. And the internet was obviously pushing it in various ways. But he didn't do it. He just didn't do it. And finally, I realized, as we moved deeper into 2024, that it wasn't going to happen. And the reasons are pretty straightforward. There's a huge number of people in Congress that know there's an ET presence now. Many of them have known it for decades, but a lot of them that didn't know it now. That doesn't mean they're saying anything about it, but there are a number of people that are coming right out and saying it. And so for every person like a Tim Burchett that comes out and says there's an ET presence, there's 25 other members that would say the same thing if they were Tim Burchett. They're not going to do it. They're too worried. All right. So, I mean, the Congress is loaded up. Okay. The president knows there's an ET presence, and so forth. So, but that's not the same. That's not enough. To get a hearing, you have to deal with the political implications. And so as we move into 2024, you've got 435 members of Congress. Every single one of them is running for their seat and spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars collectively to try to win that seat. In fact, well, it's a big number. Could be a billion. And then you've got the presidential candidates. And so Warner is sitting there with the ability, still has, to hold what would be the most important legislative hearing in the history of the United States. Perhaps the most important coming together or whatever of its kind in the history of the planet. Right? The hearing that sets the president up to disclose and ends the truth embargo. He's got that power. But he doesn't know, if he does it, what effect it could have on what his party considers an absolutely critical election. All right? And so, in terms of other members putting pressure or coming out for it beyond the ones that have, it's a limited number, like Burchett, Mace, Loon, and so forth. Well, every one of those are concerned about what's it going to have to do with my campaign? Could it cost me an election? And so, just couldn't do it. And so we push on into 2024. And then something big happens. And I was waiting for something big to happen because we're kind of in a lull. All the attention's on the politics and other terrible things happening overseas, which doesn't help. And then Chuck Schumer doubles down, drops the other shoe, whatever you want to call it, thus confirming his place in history. And he has one hell of a place in history here. Chuck Schumer does what he said he was going to do when he went into the Senate last year. I don't know, end of October, I think, around in there somewhere. It's online. You can find it. In fact, I've got the video. I could even play it for you. Maybe I will. I may play it for you a little later in the show. It's easy to find. He goes in front of the cameras on July the 11th and basically does what he said he was going to do during this, when he read into the record, he and Mike Rounds, their response to the gutting of the bill last year. So late October, early November, he goes into the Senate chamber and reads into the record. There's nobody else in there but them and the cleaning people. He reads into the record that, yeah, we're unhappy about this. We're a little disappointed in our Republican friends, but we're not done, right? We're not done. We're going to continue to push to get this done. Okay, fine. And then you don't hear from him until July the 11th. And on July the 11th, what he announced is that Mike Rounds announced, let me be clear, on behalf of him and Chuck Schumer, that they were reintroducing the UAP Disclosure Act that got gutted last year in toto. The whole thing, with all of it. As near as I can tell, there's a little wording change here and there. There's one little thing that was taken out regarding the review board, but it's basically the works. The review board, subpoena power, eminent domain, classification status for all the appropriate people so they have access to everything. And just said, we're submitting it. In this case, as an amendment. It's not clear to me the difference. It was originally called an act last year. This calls it an amendment. I thought maybe it might give it the opportunity for an up and down vote, which would be huge. In other words, not something in the bill to be reconciled with the House, but something to be submitted as an up or down vote as is, like we see on TV here, where they got the cameras on the chamber and the votes are coming in and they keep listing them. You see how many are voting for and against, and of course you easily can find out who voted for and against. Apparently, based upon input from people much smarter than I, no, it's just the way it's working and the way it's coming in. It's going to be an amendment, but it's still going to go into the Senate bill and it's going to have to be reconciled with the House. Okay, whatever. That was on the 11th. This is huge. He's doubled down. He's just told the world and the defense contractors and the DOD, and this is months after they put out the Aero study report, we said, there's nothing here. Okay? Nothing here. Robert Garcia in the House had already responded to the Aero report a number of weeks after this Aero report study, which is a complete lie. It was just concocted nonsense about how they'd studied all the reports and they didn't find anything, and they got, well, unfortunately, Sean Kirkpatrick to sign it. He didn't have much choice. He said he was quitting, and he was really angry. And they went to him and said, "Please sign this." And he had a big job waiting for him, and he was going to take care of himself and his family. What else could he do? So he signed it. Big mistake, but who knows? Maybe he'll turn around on that. They put the study out, and everybody, oh no, it's the Condon report all over again. It's 1969, and didn't take long. Well, first of all, the internet just laughed its ass off. I mean, it was, are you kidding us? Right? Do you really think that this is 1969? You don't think that we don't know what's going on here, right? And so, but Robert Garcia in the House, one of our congressmen, he expressed his feelings about the Arrow report when weeks later he submitted a modest bill into the House about the UAP panel, right? The UAP panel that would be under the president, and immediately was shot down. I mean, Johnson immediately told him, forget about it, it never passed. Doesn't matter. By dropping that report in, that was Representative Garcia's way of saying, I don't believe a word of that Arrow report, all right? And so months go by, and Rounds gets out there, and he drops this, which is another matter altogether. And so Schumer and Rounds on the 11th basically sent a very clear message to the United States government, the Congress, and all the ships at sea that Arrow report is complete nonsense. We don't believe a word of it, and we're moving forward because the government is up to its eyeballs in ET related stuff, and we're going to get it all out to you, and here's how we're going to do that. So it's a major event. Now, it's how many weeks later? It's over a month later. Only one article has been written about it. Now, I check all the media. All right. I mean, I check all the appropriate media. I don't go into blogs and stuff and what have you. But in terms of the mainstream media, I check it all. And it's linked on my website. I got 15,000 articles there. Only one article mentioned what happened on July the 11th. And that was in Discover magazine by Emily Ledoux-Lachi. I can't remember. Mom, I can't probably pronounce her name. Lucchese, I think. Wonderful woman, I'm sure. That's it. Why? Because 36 hours after Rounds makes that statement, somebody tries to kill a presidential candidate, which in our country is considered a big deal. Big deal. Happens a little often, too often, right? But it happens, and that's whoomp. Just the entire media world just congeals around that. And so it hasn't really been caught up with. However, it's okay. We got the podcast army. We got the Twitter space infantry. And so, it's getting around, right? I've already done 25 interviews pounding this out. The press will get around to it, but there's no hurry, right? Because again, we are now in the final months, the final 80 some days of this campaign, and they don't need to go there. That's all right. They're going to cover this campaign ad infinitum. All right. Now, so where does that leave us at this point? Based upon everything I know right now, I see three ways this plays out. Actually, there's four, but the fourth one is, I think, remote. And so how can this play out? What can our friends, the people following this issue, look for? It's the hearing is in the hands of Mark Warner. All right. When does he call it? He has to call it, right? Nobody else can do that. Yeah, you can want a hearing, but if he didn't want it, you ain't going to get it. So it's in his hands. It's a question of when he's going to call it. He's not going to call it before the election. The first possibility is after the election. All right. Why would I say that? Because after the election, on November the 6th, well, let's just say a few days after the election, after the votes have been counted and tallied, right, as we do in this country, right, barring any objections to the count, I'm sure that won't happen. All 435 members of Congress will know who's still in Congress and who isn't. 33 senators will know who's in the Senate and who isn't, and they'll know who the president is. hopefully. And so at that point, in that aftermath, the political issue just drops way, way down, because the only people that are going to have to deal with another campaign are the 435 members of Congress, as well as another 33 senators. But that's 2 years. It's 2 years out. And so whatever the hearing and whatever what that stuff is going to do in terms of their political future, it's now been minimized. And so the door is now open. All right. So here's option one. Mark Warner, shortly after the election, during the 75-day transition period between the election and the inauguration, and between the roughly 30-day transition period between the previous Congress and the new Congress taking over, which is early in January, he can hold the hearing, bring in 20 witnesses, put them in front of that committee over about a week, bring out some gun camera footage, whatever the juicy stuff they got, and blow the truth embargo up. And early, sometime maybe mid November, the president of the United States would be able to then come forward, as has been the plan all along, after a hearing, after it's been made very clear to the world and to the members of the president and the members of staff and the DOD, we're not alone, and he would confirm it, and that would be that. And the post-disclosure war would begin. And of course, who would be the disclosure president? Joe Biden. Is this a bad thing? If you're a Republican, maybe. But here's the upside of it. One, he will get the legacy. It will be one of the greatest legacies of all time. But he's not going to be president the following year. In other words, he's at the end of his political life. And so while he gets the legacy, we move on to a new administration, so that they can share in the legacy, right? And that's kind of okay. It's I think less nonpartisan that way, without question. And let's face it, the chairman of the Mark Warner's a Republican, Schumer's a Republican. I'm sorry, Mark Warner's a Democrat, Schumer's a Democrat. But put the politics aside. It would be one hell of a way for this man, who's given 50 plus years of his life to serve in the country, to go out on a big note. Okay. Now, if you're a Republican, hey, you don't want to hear any of that. Screw him. Screw going out on a big note. I get it. Second option, Warner can wait till later in the year, end of December. He could even wait until after the new Congress takes over, but that gets complicated, because if the Republicans were to take the Senate, then as of early January, he's no longer the chair. Rubio is the chair. Does that mean that Rubio wouldn't call a hearing? Not at all. He could very well do so. So a little complication there. But whatever the outcome of the election, either Warner or Rubio could then call for the hearing after the new Congress is in January or so, January 8, 9, whatever, or 5, 6, just after the first of the year. Bring in the 20-some witnesses, picked out of 40, 50, 60. They've got witnesses up to yin yang. They're coming out of the woods, right? They sit down, testify for a week, blows the truth embargo up, and then you take a beat, all right? And everybody's watching these hearings going, oh, my God, there's extraterrestrials here. Yeah, and then take a beat until the next president, a few days later, takes office, and that president responds to the hearing by saying, clearly we're not alone, and you want to know more about it, all right? And so then the question will be, would the knowing about it be based on just the UAP Act that passed last year, or will it be based on the total act, the big bill that may have passed or been signed by the president as of December? All right. Either way, it's disclosure. And I assure you, if we get disclosure and we need more bill, it won't be hard to get that. In other words, the president has confirmed the extraterrestrial presence. Other nations have confirmed the extraterrestrial presence. And now they submit a bill to provide the more appropriate infrastructure for the disclosure process, which incorporates the previous bill, it's going to pass. But it's messy, and that's not the way to go. All right. So these are the three basic options. Each one has its own disadvantages and advantages. And then the fourth option is do nothing, right? Meaning, got a new administration. Yeah, we got a disclosure bill, but we don't need a hearing. Let's just enjoy our new administration, the new president, whatever the hell, and we'll get to this ET thing in a couple of years, maybe a decade. That's the fourth option. I think that's extremely unlikely. So there you have it. Technically, the disclosure should come no later than early February. All right, or late January of next year. And let me also point out one thing, and I'm going to share this real quick. Do a quick share. Let's see. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here. Oops, come on. Got to do that. So, your viewers, this is the bill. Okay, this is the Senate Amendment 2610 that Rounds put out there on July the 11th. Submitted, as you can see, on July the 11th. Okay, and down here you can see that Mr. Rounds for himself and Mr. Schumer. Interesting. In legislation, they refer to each other as misters as opposed to senator, which is interesting. It's a protocol. And then here's the bill, right? 65 pages of juicy UAP disclosure. And the one thing I can go into this if you insist. I mean, I can spend an hour and a half going into the key parts of this bill. It's up to you, Minnie. But you get down here, there's something that's kind of worth noting. Very near the bill. You don't see it if you start at the top. Section 15, confirming repeal. A, repeal. Subtitle C of Title 18 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024, that was the one passed last year, Public Law 11831 is hereby repealed. Now, what are they referring to? They're referring to the gutted UAP Disclosure Act, the rump that was left over. This amendment includes it's repealed. It's gone. So this isn't really new legislation in a sense. It is simply replacing the legislation from last year, because we don't really need much legislation beyond this, because this is the total package. And then in B, it says the table of contents in Section 2 of Act 2 is amended to striking the items related to C. So they got to take it out of the table of contents, and they got to take it out of the Act. That gives you an idea, again, of what we're talking about here. Okay. And by the way, 14, they just noticed that they want to appropriate $20 million for all of this for fiscal 2025. Now you may say, well, 2020, that wouldn't even build the latrines for a nuclear submarine, right? But we're talking $20 million to essentially start getting a full accounting of all of the stuff that is in all of the various entities. They call them the authorities, right? Ruling authorities, and setting up the archives to receive, appointing and doing all the necessary to create the review panel and a lot of other stuff. We're not talking about building, embassies for saucers or anything. So it's not an unreasonable amount of money. I mean, it's not bad. It's more than it's a lot, and it will allow them to do everything they need. After disclosure, when we start getting the post-disclosure legislation, the amount of money will go up a lot more. Okay, that is kind of where we are. And that's a nutshell. I mean, I'm trying to boil it down to the basics. A new act is in play. The hearing is in the hands of pretty much one person, Warner. I mean, the House wants to hold another hearing. They may birch it in October. It won't be a big deal. They'll get a couple of witnesses. Will it trip disclosure? No, but it will certainly keep the pressure on. So we'll see. So that's a possibility. But ultimately, it's Warner, the Senate Intel Committee, the witnesses, and the timing with respect to this election.
Welcome to Anamakan, Anomicon is a virtual conference on everything anomalous, live streaming on YouTube, Twitter, X, and on Twitch. Join us on September 1st and 2nd as over 24 speakers give presentations on everything from UFOs and aliens to ghosts and the paranormal, from Bigfoot and lake monsters to witchcraft and the occult. It's all happening at Anomicon, and most importantly, it's completely free. To learn more about our speakers and the event, visit anomicon.com. We'll see you on September 1st and 2nd for Anomicon.
No, I appreciate that. That's a great amount of information. One thing that popped into my head was that throughout the 80 plus years of the truth embargo, as you call it, we know that the UFO subject has been flooded with disinformation and misinformation. And if we were to get this monumental confirmation, capital D disclosure, and then we work into the post disclosure world, what is there? No, let me phrase this right. Does it not concern you that potentially the disinformation and misinformation may continue in order to shape a narrative for going forward? Even yes, we've got disclosure, but that can't be stopped. So what they'll do is they'll allow disclosure, but then they will control it through a certain narrative to fit a certain direction they want to take it in, whether it be weaponizing this, saying that there may be a threat still to the, do you see where I'm coming from? It's like, why does it suddenly become really clear and to us?
I'm not worried about it. All right. And I'll tell you why. The truth embargo, this bizarre distortion of reality, the denial that what is right before our very eyes is not really there, the denial of all the work that's being done in the research and everything else. That's what really makes disinformation working. Okay. So disinformation from the government in service to the truth embargo, well, and it's straightforward. You got a truth embargo, yeah, you can do disinformation. And in terms of the public, well, since there's no conclusion and the government won't acknowledge it, you have some fun, make stuff up, just whatever. What does it matter? I don't know if I claim that I visited Venus in my childhood, can't disprove it, can't prove it. The government's lying about the issue, meaning they're withholding all the truth. Maybe they're withholding the fact that people visit Venus, whatever. So the truth embargo is the principal generator of misinformation, not only from the government in a formal way, but from the general public that's operating in a truth vacuum. I get that. Now, disclosure is a whole different ballgame. Disclosure confirms the ET presence. What will start happening then, and I'm pretty sure about this, I'm going to speculate that in the year following the confirmation from the President of the United States, there will not be a single day when there is not at least one, if not a number, of ongoing hearings in the House or Senate on this subject. As every committee on the Hill, our subcommittee, that's got a dog in this fight, is getting people up there to testify to them under oath as they gather information about how they're going to deal with it and so forth. So you're going to have this ongoing process of hearings with people coming up under oath, people with rank and station and all that. So you're going to have that, okay? And of course, the disclosure event, and one of the reasons it's been tough to do it, get it done, I get it, tells the entire world, confirms the entire world, in the interest of national security, we've been lying through our teeth for 77 years, right? Lying, misrepresenting, all kinds of stuff. That's going to be immediately confirmed. And as part of the disclosure process, these lies or the misrepresentations of the past will be examined, disassembled, so forth. It's totally appropriate, all right? And so we're going to be in an environment post-disclosure where, for a number of reasons, playing games with the truth or playing your disinformation games like it's the old days would be a very bad idea. One of the reasons for that is that let's say that and they've done it You go back, we had hearings where we learned that the government lied about this and the government lied about that. Vietnam, Iraq, you name it. There's been so many instances where we learned, the government lied about this. But that was then. This is 2024 or 2025. Back then, there was no internet. There was no worldwide global social media. There weren't influencers with 40, 50, 60 million followers. There wasn't a podcast army and, as I say, a Twitter infantry. We didn't have any of that. And so what disclosure will do is draw the focus of the entire world, because they pretty much, unless you're off in the woods so deep you can't get Wi-Fi, the whole world basically, in various degrees and levels, doesn't matter, are focused on this. I mean, it's going to be the most intense, engaged, followed event in all of human history. I mean, I know some people can say, I could give a damn whether the ETs are here or not. They announce the ET presence, screw it. I'm just going to go down, have a couple of beers, get a pizza, and I just don't care. I know there are people like that. That's fine. But the vast majority of the 8 billion on the planet are going to be really focused on this, not just in the US, in every country. Certainly the countries that have pretty much well-developed technology and what have you. That includes the UK, of course. And so the scrutiny level is going to be off the charts. We're off the charts. You talk about your fact checkers, your political fact and all that stuff. Okay, fine. They're trying to do that. It's not easy because the lies come so hard and fast. It's really hard to keep up with them. But those that are going to fact check everything that comes out of the mouth of every single person in those hearings, and every member of the DOD or any other spokesperson, is going to be off the charts. And so if they come out and try to play games with it, they are going to get fried. And it would be utterly stupid to do it. We're going to be in the great truth era, where people have probably, we're going to make a decision, okay, enough lying, enough of this crap. It's not working. It's not helping. Everything's going to hell. Now you're told us something very, very important, very truthful. Now we want more truth, lots of truth, tons of truth, years of truth. And any lies, we're going to punish you terribly, right? We're going to crush you, okay? And you say, no, I can't. No, believe me, some actor, some relatively famous person comes up some silly lie, and it gets out there on the internet, and within a couple of weeks, the whole thing has been proven to be false. That person has lost their Emmy or whatever the hell, and they've now gone into exile like that. And most people don't even give a damn what that actor did or didn't do. But in the post-disclosure, the people are going to really care what the government knows, what the government is telling us. Are their answers truthful, right? Is the process responsible? When are we going to, if you can't tell us this now, when are we going to get told? And the Disclosure Act covers all of that. Postponement, process, accountability, transparency, the whole thing. That's what people are going to be focused on. And so one of the reasons that I stick with this, even when there's some times when I'm going, I can't take it anymore, is that I think this changes the world in ways that we can't even appreciate yet. But I do know this. If you look at the 20th century in general, all the wars that have taken place, and genocides, bloodless invasions, whatever. It's a planet of first 2 and then 4 and then 6 and then 8 billion people just swimming in an ocean of lies. Government after government, lying to their people, lying to each other, generating anger and paranoia that requires many nuclear missiles to build. So that lying son of a bitch over there can't sneak up on you, and if they do, you'll nuke them first or whatever. That's the 20th century. It's an ocean of lies. The truth is kind of a side dish, right? That's the entree. The entree is a giant lie, and you might get a side dish of truth. That if that doesn't change, I can tell you, our civilization is going to basically become pretty unpleasant, to the point where people are going to be wanting to go with Elon Musk to Mars as soon as he can take them, right? I mean, we're headed for major, major trouble. And I could go on a lot about all of that, but I'm not going to. I've done it too much. I need to back off. But I can go through a litany of the crap that's heading right for us. And at this point, we don't have any way to get out from under it. But disclosure is the game changer. That's the thing that changes worldview. That's the thing that gives us a key, one of those master keys to open hundreds and hundreds of doors that are technically closed right now because of the systemic dysfunction that we have, not only in each country, but also in the collection of countries. We just can't get anything done. Can't do it. Can't agree. Can't do this. Can't do that. We get a minor victory. I don't know. They lower the price of insulin and they go raving on it for days. Half the world can't even get insulin. They just sit there and die. Whatever. I'm just saying, this is a game changer. Now, Danny Sheehan talks about worldview change. I totally agree. You're going to see a worldview change unlike the world has ever seen. It's going to be an opportunity to do things that couldn't be done. So my job is to help remind people that while humans are capable of getting used to anything, I mean anything, if we have a nuclear war, 8-10 months in, you're going to have a lot less people, but they're going to be in there kind of getting something done and working it out, and after a while they get used to it. It's like, it was a nuclear war. Everything's radiated, but we'll move on. That humans are that way. That's why we're so many of us. We've lasted so long. We get used to everything. I get that. And we will get used to being in a world with other ETs. We will get used to ETs being even engaging us. We will get used to it all. But in the process, in that first year, certainly, our second year, those years after disclosure, I hope we will get unused to simply allowing our government, our candidates, and our corporations to manipulate us to death with an endless stream of propaganda and lies, and put an end to that and start demanding the truth and rewarding the truth. When people start rewarding politicians and capitalists for telling the truth and make them feel good, they'll get more of it. Okay. But what we do is we reward the lies. In other words, some corporation gives us a whole bunch of lies about a product. We buy it and we buy the lies and then go buy the product. And they're going, well, this is what you do. It's the same thing with politicians. They get up in the stalks, they're out there in the campaign road and they come up with a stupid ass line that's totally bullshit. And everybody goes, oh, yeah. And they vote for them. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to come up with more. So we reward lies and we do not reward the truth. Maybe we don't get enough truth to reward. I don't know. This is a problem. The undermining of confidence in government, lying as a virtual, a fundamental modality of both government and commerce, is destroying the country and making it worse for those that don't have the benefits that we have. Because when we go down, the rest of the third world goes way down. And so this is a major problem. It's preventing us from fixing things, from getting rid of nukes, from getting rid of Superfund sites, from dealing with climate issues, health issues. We're just drenched in lies. You can't get anywhere. After disclosure, the biggest truth of all is going to come out and be known worldwide. I'm hoping it triggers this worldview change in which we flip. And you've got people rewarding the truth and really punishing the lies until they get the message and they realize, look, you want to stop getting the death threats. You want to get Christmas cards instead, little presents in the mail, things like that. Tell the truth. Even if it's awkward, just tell the truth. Be authentic. I'm hoping that disclosure is the switch that flips that. If I'm wrong, I don't think we'll be worse off.
I mean, I think we're seeing this UAP Disclosure Act, coming back into play with multiple senators and that sponsoring it. I think Martin Heinrich just got on board with it as well, and Gillibrand and that already a week or two ago. But what's stopping it from just getting gutted again at the last minute, and then we're back to square one yet again?
Good point. By the way, Gillibrand and Heinrich came out and backed the other bills. But the fact that they came out and restated it, right, is important because that's their way of putting a message out to whoever needs to hear that message that we're on this. We're supporting this, right? And this is after the Arrow report, which says there's nothing to support. Okay, so it's a game being played, right? But well, again, we can't guarantee it. But look, the first time around, it caught us by surprise. I really think so. I honestly didn't think the defense contractors would do that. I just felt that was way too risky. And we're making all this progress, and the internet is all over it and everything else. I didn't think they had the guts to do it, but I didn't think they had the guts to do the Arrow report. The Arrow report was even worse, right? I mean, the Arrow report is a complete lie. It's a Hail Mary pass. Hopefully somebody will catch it in the end zone and we'll get out from under this. No chance of that. And so the Arrow report was actually worse than the gutting of the bill. The gutting of the bill was, look, some people are going to get hurt by this. We got to pull this out. They give us a lot of campaign money. We know that. All that's legal. But an Arrow report that's a complete lie, not legal. Okay, so now we go back to the next time around. Well, you see, this time around, we know exactly what to expect this. We're not going to be caught by surprise. From the day that bill goes into reconciliation, assuming it's passed in the Senate, which almost certainly will be, from the day we learn that the conference begins, we're all over it. All over it. The internet's going to be on it. The media's going to be on it. They're going to be wondering who's talking to who, what's going on. We're going to see it. And we're probably going to probe a lot deeper. And so when the lobbyists representing the defense contractors turn up again, if they do, they're going to get outed. The members of Congress they're talking to get outed early, and the pushback is going to start immediately. And so they may gut it again, but they're going to have to do it virtually in the fierce, with the lights, right under the fierce, glow of lights, transparent lights. Boy, I'll tell you, if they got the balls to do that, I'll give them some points for that. I mean, if they're that arrogant, if they really think we're so indestructible, so protected, that we can come and do it again. It's like the guy, and this actually happens. This has happened a number of times. One or two people will go in and rob a bank, get some serious money, and get away with it. And 2 weeks later, they'll come back and rob it again. And usually it doesn't go so well the second time around, right? But they just, they're just so full of themselves. Oh, we know the bank, right? We know how it works and everything. We've been there. We robbed it. So, hey, it'll be easy. We'll go rob it again. And so they show up. It's going to be like that. All I can say is, defense contractors, look, eminent domain doesn't mean they will take it all. It doesn't mean that you'll get nothing. It's simply the declaration of a right. They're putting that ET tech under the same heading as usually resources like real estate, land, water resources, things like that. They're just putting it under that umbrella, which everybody knows about. They know that you can do that. They can come in eminent domain over, a couple of 100 acres of your ranch because they got to put an interstate through it. And while you can appeal, they're going to win, but they're going to pay you a fair market value. And you'll help your fellow citizens. That's how it works. And with the ET tech, it's probably even more flexible. In other words, they can choose and come and say, that those vehicles, we want them. Let's get them in a U-Haul and get them over here, right? Or the scientific material that you've come up with, the documents about that, we want those. Or no, we may say we don't need those right now. You can keep them. We don't need them right now. Okay. Or they can take the tech, bring it in, and then decide what to do with it. And the decision may mean going back to the same contractor and saying, look, all right, we want to develop this new technology this way, and we want you to do the work, and you'll be paid very handsomely. Okay. That could be that too. So but of course they want to project it like, oh, they're sending. They actually did this. There were some postings. They're gonna send the Third Army in there, and they're gonna break into Lockheed Martin or whatever, and they're gonna go find the machines and drag them out through the foyer. And kind of, no, it's the usual nonsense. No. So eminent domain doesn't mean automatically that now you've lost any chance to make any money from this. They may even share proprietary position. I don't know. It just means that Chuck Schumer rightfully made it clear that non-human technology with science and engineering that could change the world and benefit the human race has a public good quotient that more than justifies eminent domain by the United States government. And I can assure you the other countries are going to do the same thing. But the defense contractors have had it so good for so long that they couldn't resist. So they did their thing. Could they do it a second time? They can try, but I would strongly encourage them not to do that because it will not go well for them.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'd like to just switch it slightly because I put out a couple of posts asking for questions to be submitted, and our very good mutual friend from Canada, Victor Vigiani, gave me a wonderful list. So I think you've covered some of the points, but I've got a couple here I really want you to answer if you don't mind. So he asks if Steve had the opportunity to debate or discuss the UAP phenomena with any of the US candidates, who would he choose, and what would 3 of his main talking points or challenges be?
First of all, that's not going to happen, period. And because it's not going to happen, it's hard to even imagine doing it. But if any, and it would, not a debate, the candidates debate, right? Citizens don't debate, right? The candidates debate, journalists ask questions. But if I had a chance to sit down privately with either of the candidates, doesn't matter. I would basically try to give them a sense of the importance of disclosure, in case they didn't know it, some of the history of this issue politically, in case they didn't know that, and of course make the case that it is in their best interest, the best interest of their party, and the best interest of the American people, that this lie end as soon as possible. Like the day after you get in the White House would be good, But and again, it's not just that they have to have a platform to stand on, and that platform is everything that's happened in the last 7 years, plus the hearings that we have that are going to be publicly held, and millions of people are going to watch with these extraordinary witnesses that have got clearances and high levels of security and all that classification. That's necessary to set the president up appropriately. So my advice would be pretty much that, right? Here's why it should happen. Here's why it needs to happen as soon as possible. And if you've got any questions about the history of this issue that somehow you don't know, I mean, any candidate or a president has access to a lot of information, but that doesn't mean they've taken advantage of that. And in general, the public's viewpoint, I'm a populist activist. People in high power, they easily lose sight of how the public really views something. And just looking at some polls doesn't tell you that much. But talking to people like myself or Dolan or Danny Sheehan or so many others who have been immersed in it and dealing with the public in online, social media, at conferences for years, we can give them I think, a much more, visceral sense of how the people, many people, feel about this and deal about this. And of course, I'd be happy to discuss contactees with them as well, which is something that's not going to come up leading into disclosure. It's not going to come up. I would be shocked if it did. We're not going to have the equivalent of a David Grush coming forward on contact. I mean, Jim Semivan, who worked 30 some years for the CIA in high position, in retirement, came out and said, "I'm a contactee," and that's fine. But I don't see. Well, it depends on when disclosure happens. Maybe this way. Here would be a nice scenario. It'd be really cool. We get the hearings. during the transition, Biden discloses we're done, or we get it toward the end of the transition, the new president discloses, and then the questions rain down. I mean, literally, I mean, you're talking about the most intense journalistic engagement ever in the history of the world, and it'll be going all over the world, but in the US, the most intense. Journalists literally, fighting to get to the mic, fighting for questions, jamming the rooms wall to wall, out the door, down the hall, asking, and they're not gonna hold back. They will be completely unleashed. There is absolutely no reason and no question that they will not ask if they want to. But they're not going to care about some sort of rollout process in terms of their journalistic responsibilities. And so I anticipate on day one, post disclosure, whether it's the president in the briefing room or the president's spokesperson in the briefing room having, and that would be tough, right? They should have some panels of people answering lots of questions before the president puts in that position, or the president should have a panel of people behind, and we've seen that, so that if the question is not something the president can answer, they can turn to this person and that person. But it'll be brutally intense, and I guarantee you, day one, a reporter is going to ask, Mr. President, Ms. Spokesperson, or secretary, whatever, off to the side, is it true that these non-humans are, quote, abducting humans and doing some sort of medical or hybrid or genetic work on them? Day one. The issue's been out there for decades. It's no secret. It's very difficult to deal with politically, without question. Just getting to UAP and talking about non-human biologics was like a major accomplishment. But that question's going to be asked. And the answer had damn well better be yes. And then they'll ask, well, why didn't you do something about it? And the answer is probably going to be because there's nothing we can do about it. Hopefully the answer is, well, we could, but except we cut a deal with them and we gave them an unlimited supply of M&Ms and other snacks and whatever. They gave us whatever. Forget that analogy. Scratch that. We gave them a bunch of DNA and they gave us some very cool tech. That's going to be a tough answer. We'll see. But the point I'm making is it'll be out quick. And so later in the year, late January, February, I forget when the State of the Union is, there'll be the first State of the Union by the first or the disclosure president. And during the State of the Union, I could see that president gesturing up to the left, up in the area where the public is sit and where invitees sit often. They're there with a VIP. It's brought them in as a guest. Sometimes it's the first lady, whatever. And there are two contactees up there. And they point them out and acknowledge the fact that these individuals, like so many others, have had to deal with the presence of these ETs without the support of their government, or in general any support at all. And we wanted those two here today to let the people out there know that we get that by maintaining that truth embargo, we left you hanging out to dry. That would be a powerful moment, let me tell you. I mean, there'll be a lot of tears flowing out there. Is that possible? It's not out of the question. All right. Or they might bring up one of the top researchers, right, that have done the work with contactees to honor their efforts, obviously, without the support of the government or anything. If John Mack was alive, they might choose him. And then that researcher might have brought a couple of contactees along with them that they have been working with, something like that. These are the kinds of things that can heal post-disclosure, because we don't need decades and decades of screaming and yelling and lawsuits and crap while we're trying to engage the new world and a new paradigm. I mean, that's what we do, but we don't want to do it in this case. We need to be good winners, and we need to move forward as positively as possible, because we don't have a lot of time to start fixing things before things really go south.
Yeah, I hear that. Now, this question is a great one as well. Victor asks, during the tension-filled war cycle currently in play, and should any country actually use a thermonuclear device, Would off-worlds intervene either subtly or openly as they have done in the past?
My problem with that is simple. Is it possible? Yeah, right. It's a kind of thing. It's called a Deus ex machina, and yeah, right. It's possible, but I don't talk about it. I don't encourage it because there's only downside there. If they might do it, they might do it, but then they might not do it. And so this idea that they might do it, I don't want that. I don't want to encourage that idea because it'll dissuade people from taking care of business. I mean, we got enough resistance to any nuclear non-proliferation treaties. I mean, there's almost no negotiations going on now. In fact, they're racing to see who can come up with more advanced nuclear weapons. I mean, they don't want to get up to 80,000 nukes again, but they want the 20,000 they got to be even super better. Missile delivery systems, submarine stuff, whatever. We're still utterly playing on the edge of the volcano. We're like kids with huge firecrackers. We could blow ourselves up at any time, and we're not doing anything about it. And so any the ETs will take care of it stuff is not helping, and that's why I don't get into it much. Can I say no? Yeah, I mean I can't rule it out, but it's not something we want to invest in because it's a crapshoot, right? You want to put your whole civilization's future based on a roll of the dice? I don't think so.
No, no, we definitely don't. Well, listen, Steve, I think that's a good point here to end. And what I'd like to suggest is that if we get these hearings coming up in October, I'd love for you to come back and we can kind of dissect them. Because I think between October and November, December, when we're getting closer to the election, that would be a pivotal time to see if some of the things that we've mentioned today seem to be playing out.
I assure you, no matter how many calls I'm getting from the major news organizations and the big papers, I will never forget my podcast army. This is the website for the New Paradigm Institute. This is Danny Sheehan's organization. This is uh, substantial money has been raised. They have a substantial number of projects underway, including ways to contact members of Congress. But this is going to be probably the major think tank exclusively devoted to the subject in the post-disclosure world. New Paradigm Institute. Please visit it. And if you happen to have a few 100,000 lying around, donate it because they are on the front line of the disclosure process. I want to mention the Liberation Times. This is such a wonderful site. This is a journalistic site exclusively devoted to the UAP issue, with particular emphasis on the politics. And it's edited and published by one person, Christopher Sharp, who also writes for several UK papers. He's a full-blown journalist. It hasn't been around for too long, but it's just been a steady stream of articles. If you go to Liberation Times, go to their very first article, I think it's back in March, whenever the hell it was, and just start reading forward, you get a very good picture of everything that's been going down from a journalist's perspective. It's really very, very valuable. I want to mention the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. I founded this along with my partner, publicist Dan Harari, who's based in Hollywood. His idea. We founded this in November last year, and this is really a happening thing. We're up to 186 members, half of which are in the film industry or the content industry, and half are in the UAP world. Though some have a foot in both camps, but we have to decide which camp is most appropriate. And so, what the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is really quite simple. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, C3 nonprofit, if you're an American citizen, okay. And it has one goal: network together, make it easy for the people who are now really willing to in the content creation industry, all the way up to Steven Spielberg, who want to engage this issue and get it right, and the people that have been doing all the work and the research and everything for all these years out of their own back pocket can find them, and they can find each other. So and because the stigma is gone, the truth embargo is slowly disappearing. There's no reason for Hollywood or any film, TV, film, and content creators to be afraid to talk with us. Okay, and when they don't talk to us, and there's been several instances, they get it wrong, and that's not helping. And so we're up to 161 members. This is the list of our founding members in the film industry. They're from around the world. We've got one Oscar winner, and we're working on a second Oscar winner. But this is a highly talented group of people who have made content, created content. Almost every one of them is on IMDb, and we're going to be adding more. And they are basically saying, by being here, I'm down with the ET issue. I'm more than happy to engage this. What do you got? Give me your project. And then on the other end of it, we've got the people in the UAP field, many of which you will know, right? And these are people in the field that are saying, okay, here I am, right? So they can find others in their own genre, or they can find about others in the other genre. And then even if you're not a member, you can go here and you can find people that you might want to connect with, because they're stating very clearly, I want to make content, I want to be part of content, and here I am. Now we're going to eventually get up to 200 members, 250 members, and it's a nonprofit. We don't make money from this. I mean, we do charge a membership fee now, but it's not much for the founding members. Dan and I started it with out of our own pocket, but the point is, we're not going to get deals. We're not going to get percentages. We're not going to be involved. All we're doing is to make it easier for other people to make deals. As long as they get the content right, they get the message out there, and if they make lots of money, thank goodness, because the only way you can keep making content is if you make money, and it brings back resources. You can choose to do with those resources whatever you want, but we know what the UAP people will do. And so the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is a 501c3. It does have a donation page. It also has a GoFundMe page. Very quickly on my site, which is about to be redone and reshaped as a think tank, because I am now also a 501c3. And I'm going to convert to think tank mode and open up a GoFundMe and a Patreon. And for the first time in 28 years, don't ask me why it took so long, Paradigm Research Group can accept tax-deductible funding, right? Which hopefully will help people support it. And then in terms of just some of the resources that will continue to be available, the Print Media Archive is probably one of the most important. And that, for those that have never been there, the Print Media Archive is, look at those years, 15,000 articles linked that you can go read, going all the way back to 1947, triaged or curated out of maybe 30,000, meaning a lot of the stuff is just not substantive, it's fringe, it's small little publications or whatever. So in other words, a curated, meaningful, substantive 15,000 articles. The total number of articles, if you want to get into microfiche and libraries, probably that have been done on this subject, probably is in the 50, 60,000 range, going back to 47, which is interesting because people think the media doesn't cover this. That's not true. The media has covered this to death. Well, not to death. They've covered it plenty. What the media doesn't do is investigate. They don't challenge the government. They don't investigate. And that's what irritates people. But they have written plenty of articles. But if you're not looking, you're not going to see them. This archive, right, is an enormous resource for people that want to go and see what happened, what's going on from a journalistic point of view. And in the last couple of years, the amount of what I'll call debunking articles or silly articles is now practically nothing. Maybe not even 1%. Maybe 1 out of every 200 articles is kind of a stupid debunking piece. It's just another time. It's a different place. All right, Vinny, thanks a lot. And if you need anything at any time, let me know.
What I will do, I'll make sure that all of the sites that you just mentioned, I've got the links in the description below as well. But really, I just want to say thank you, as always, Steve. It is always a pleasure to get your insights on this subject. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Vinny.
And to everyone watching, as always, please go and click all the links. Check out Steve's work over at Paradigm. It's incredible. It's been going for so long, and it's a force in this subject. So thank you. And we will see you on the next one. But for now, take care and goodbye.